thewellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives. This is Up for a Chat with Cindy O'Meara, Karen Smith, and Kim Morrison.
Here we are, up for a chat about the hottest topics that are important to you, inspiring you to awaken the change within. I'm Karen Smith.
I'm Kim Morrison.
And I'm Cindy O'Meara.
And our beautiful and Cindy have brought us today's guest from a trip that they did to the US. Now, they found this guy in the street, is the story that I'm hearing. It doesn't sound to me like he's a loiterer, but you found him in the street and you've managed to extract some really amazing gold from this guy. And I'm super, super keen to hear what it was that turned you guys on with him. Hit me with it.
Kim, do you want to go or will I say something?
You go.
I love how you think we picked him up from the street. So, okay, what happened was that Kim and I went to New York and we went to the summit, and it just so happens that Joel was actually at the publicity summit, but we ran into him outside the front door, and it just sounds like we ran into him in the street in New York. But I don't know what it was, but we just started chatting, and Kim and I don't remember the conversation anymore, but we were talking to Joel about why he was at the publicity summit, because the publicity summit is all about having a date with the press. So it's a speed dating with the press. So you get 2.5 minutes to spruik what you can tell in the media, whether it be TV, radio, magazines, podcasting, anything like that. So I asked Joel that question, and both Kim and I walked away going, oh, that was interesting. We should have him on our podcast. And so, Joel, that's why you're here.
Wow. And thank you for having me. Hello.
And it's just wonderful having you on the podcast. We've all watched The Illusion.
You've all watched Living My Illusion. Right, thank you.
We've all watched it. And for me, I have to tell you, I was riveted and upset and in suspense and dismayed and blown away. I don't know what else to say. It wasn't what I expected, but I think we're going to really be asking some serious questions here, because we're wondering, is this a male thing that we go through, or do females go through this? The midlife crisis that females and males go through. I actually would like to hand it to Kim at the moment, because Kim watched it with her husband, and I was really interesting what her husband said. Kim, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, but I think before I give that, perhaps we can just give our listeners a little bit of background as to Joel. So, Joel, maybe you explain to us what the documentary is about, why you created it, and then I think I'll give you my feedback as to what we saw in it. Would that work? Because I'd love to know a little bit about how it all came about and what it's truly about and what your purpose is with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, this was something that was, just an idea came to me, and I don't know how ideas come to people, but as Napoleon Hill said, that's the all riches be in their form in an idea. And, just out of nowhere, this idea came to me because I had been working with Tony Yeton Salimi, and Tony is an elite life coach and business coach. And I started working with him in April 2015. And I was going on this transformational journey of learning a lot about who I was. Before that point, I had started to look at the world differently and realise what was going on around me, and think, okay, what is this life am I living? Am I living something that is really true to who I am, or am I living the life that I've been condemned to live? And it's like, when we talk about what we eat, and Cindy, when you talk about the food and the diet and how people don't have the education, and they mindlessly go along with the flow of everyone, and we all eat what we're told to eat, and told to eat. I mean, by messages, by advertising. Let's go to Pizza Hut, let's have McDonald's, let's get a coffee from Starbucks, and these things aren't necessarily what our body truly wants. But that as well happens in our life when we're younger, when we're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. We're working from that place of inside of us, of who we truly are, and being creative and living in the moment. But as we get older, then we start to look outside of us for validation, and we begin to become people pleasers and live other people's expectations, whether that be parents, friends, society, culture, religion. Dress this way, walk this way, act this way, talk this way. And if you don't, you're an outsider. And every single person that we've called great, Einstein, Steve Jobs, Steven Spielberg, Jim Carrey, they keep that in a child. And they remain true to who they are and inspire others. But also people are ridiculed for being outside of the line. And I just sort of began to notice these kind of things happening within me. And I think every single person can feel inside them when something's not right, something's not true to who they are. And so when you get to the age of over 35, I heard, it takes a certain level of unlearning, because our default response is our programmed ideas and beliefs. So I started to, time, and a sort of conspiracy of events happened to align me to Tony Salimi. And it was on the Inspired stage in Molen where I heard him talk, and I bought his book, A Path to Wisdom, which was just really, truly just it captivated everything that I was going through, everything I was feeling. And there was this man who had put into words everything that I was trying to convey to myself. And it was just so beautifully written up. I was like electricity every time I was reading something in this book. So I met with Tony and had a fabulous 8-hour meeting in the Savoy Hotel, of all glamorous places in London. And that led me to start the journey with one-to-one coaching with him. And I remember taking a camera into the first session, because what this man was helping me to realizations about where I was. And it was just deep learning on such a level that was beyond all anything I'd ever heard of, whether it was, Napoleon Hill, Robert Kiyosaki, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar. I was looking at all of these people, but this was, completely new level of personal and spiritual development. And because of the transformations that were happening to me, I thought, wow, the world could hear this. I just saw that if I am suffering, if I have these pains, if I have these problems, if I have these thoughts and these feelings, then there are billions of people who are suffering without having a guide. Sometimes I wonder how people cope without having this a professional to be that kind of mirror for you and reflect back at you to help you get beneath the surface of your own lives. That's what truly inspired me going through this work. And then, of course, I of course gave the gift to her to do the same. We were both truly inspired to take with him, with Tony, to create this documentary series, the first episode of which you've seen.
So can I ask then, because it's quite personal, and I don't want to give away the storyline of the documentary. It's only 45 minutes long, so it's really worthwhile taking the time when it's released here in Australia. But if you are sharing something so raw and so personal, with the cameras watching it on you and your wife and your life coach and all of that, like, did you yourself know that that's what you were going to say in the interviews and that's where it was going to head? Like, did you have an idea or a feeling that the video or the documentary would head this way and expose a truth to the both of you in that documentary?
Well, I mean, I guess that was the phenomenal part about it. We didn't necessarily know the outcome from the beginning. Originally, I wanted to be able to show what I was experiencing because it was about speaking the truth, and I just really got that, and I thought that's incredible. Because for the first time in my life, perhaps, I had somebody who I could say anything I wanted to. And Tony is somebody, he knows everything about me, and he still likes me. He creates a safe space where you're able to share one's truth. And that I was just truly mesmerized by. And I believed in it so much that I thought, well, by me sharing my truth, that opens, that it can be of benefit to other people, so that they know that they're not alone going through these things. And what was so incredible was the response that we got from the screenings, where people came up to me in tears, guys, because I do believe that, we are taught as men to suppress our emotions, to be macho, to not talk about what we're going through, and that can be quite dangerous. I've learned in that it can present itself in the form of illnesses, and of course that's something that was pointed out to me, and to how, if it's not dealt with, then it's something that can cause great danger to you. But we didn't know exactly what was going to happen. Of course, working through things, I was coming to the realization about how I was living other people's expectations and living what society to do. And anybody looking in through, I realized that I created this life, this everything that society says that we need, all materialism, the house, the car, you get married, you have kids, you get a dog, you get a cat. And now that's okay to some people if that's truly what you want to do, if that's truly you. But what if it's not you? What if, you're crushing the dreams that you've always had, that you've known inside? And we all have a voice inside of us. And, have you ever made a decision and then gone ahead with that, but look, knowing that it was not the right thing to do by you? You knew inside.
Joel, I have a question. I guess because I've watched your documentary quite recently, my question is what about the commitment that is made in life? We make commitments in life to not only ourselves but to people. What about that commitment? I understand what you're saying. We're not living. You're not living. You're living an illusion. But what are commitments that we make to people? How does that come into changing our minds about what our true purpose is?
Well, when we making commitments, there's making commitments that are true to who you are, and there's making commitments to please others, to fulfill a role, and to be acceptable in society. People who are single want to be with somebody because it's perceived to be, that's what society says to do, to get together with someone. And I remember when I was getting to a certain age, I think, 28, and people were saying to me, "Well, come on, you should be married by now. You should have found someone." And that's like, wow, okay, why is that? And we all do things in our life. We all commit to things, but are they for the reasons of living who we are, or are they for pleasing others? And it was very interesting. Oprah Winfrey was interviewing women in their I think 70s or 80s, and she said, if you could go back and say something to your younger self, what would it be? And every single one would say, don't worry because everything's going to be okay. But they all wanted to say in a roundabout way that they would have chosen to live a life that's true to who they are instead of living the expectations of others.
And did they say what that life was? Did they say that they wouldn't have married, that they would have children, that they wouldn't have done their career, that they wouldn't have had their best friend, they wouldn't have? What did they say? Because I didn't see it. But
well, I didn't. This is something that I heard after the fact, and I've heard it said by other people as well, who have spoken to people, when they're in hospital and asked them what they would do. And, the majority of people look back in regret. There is 50 to 60% of people who get married get divorced. 59% of women do not divorce, even though they want to, because of financial reasons. And so people go and do things out of fear. They make decisions, make choices out of fear, instead of making out of love, out of listening to that voice inside that's saying, this is the direction you have to take. This is the next step for you. But instead, we learn to shut down that inner guidance system that we all have, that human intelligence that we're all born with. And that's what's dangerous for us. That's not living our truth.
I'd like to look at, because I love to do this, I like to look at historical perspective on this. Mm-hmm. So you're a hunter-gatherer. You're living with a tribe. What choices do you have? You live with this tribe. You have to get food. Part of why we're on this planet is to, I believe, have children and, keep the gene pool going. That is, that if I was going to put it in basic terms, that's what it is. So we now live in a society that our evolutionary brain and our evolutionary bodies don't necessarily adapt to very well. And so do you think it's because we have these choices that we didn't have before and we're sitting around twiddling our thumbs that creates this, what you're saying? Like, this is the only way, and I'm giving you the hard questions, Joel, because your documentary throws it at me to do this. And
okay, but when you look back in history and things like that, you're looking from the whole survival perspective, the hunter-gatherer, that's survival. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. There is a lot more to us than that survival instinct. Because we have intelligence, we create things.
But what makes you think the hunter-gatherer was not a spiritual being having a physical, a physical?
Well, I'm sure the hunter-gatherer was a spiritual being having a physical experience, and but is that something? Are they? Because you can live your truth. You don't have to do things because that's what you're be programmed and conditioned to do. And it's the same comparison that I made with the food. Do we don't, if we are unaware, if we're unconscious, we just go and eat whatever we want. But if we have education, then we can make different choices. But I do believe it's about being honest with who you are, because you talk about procreation, but is that right with the wrong person?
You've stumped me there.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask, and it might support.
We do hit on that in the documentary, and how people conceive naturally, and some need assistance.
Joel, it's Karen. I just really wanted to ask or just kind of wrap my head around questions. You mentioned that you weren't really sure of the outcome and how it was all going to unfold, and for yourself that it was really about figuring out that you had been living a lie in effect, or you hadn't been living towards what you felt was your greatest purpose and your greatest truth. And I think there wouldn't be too many people who would disagree with you in that, it's vital for humanity to feel that they're in a sense of fulfillment. The question that I've got for you is one, your wife, she had no idea how the documentary was going to unfold, and she actually willingly agreed to participate in the documentary without having clarity of the outcome. Is that correct? So it was just as much of a shock to her. So none of what we saw was rehearsed or staged?
Well, what you saw, a lot of certainly the coaching sessions and live views are live, and there is another side to this story, which I don't know if after it comes up, the episode 2 is called Blinded by You, and this is Timia's side of the story. Yeah. And then that goes back as well. But we both went through a journey of discovering who we truly are, and seeing the choices and decisions that we've made, and where that came from. And we were both inspired to help others to realise that the lies that they may be living. And what's really going on beneath the surface of people, because anybody looking at me and Timia would think they've got it all, but what's really going on behind the scenes? That's what we're getting at, and that's what we truly, no matter what was going to happen with that, and it's still in development as well. So we still are working through things.
Mm. And do you think, I remember when I got married, I was 23 years old, and I remember to my brother, gosh, am I making the right decision? Am I making the right decision? And he said to me, there's no right or wrong. All there is what is right now. And he said, you can't know what the future is going to hold, and you can't know how you're going to feel in a month or a year or 20 years, but you can only know how you feel right now. And with that, I went ahead and got married, and, found myself not terribly long afterwards, because as it turned out, my relationship became abusive, but my relationship reached an end based on what was right at the time that it reached its end. It wasn't as much a case of me recognizing that I wasn't fulfilling my purpose at the time. I guess the question that I is, isn't it natural that a human will evolve and change, and relationships as a third entity between two human beings also, it them to change as well? And when they don't, that's obviously when the two parties, reach a decision as to whether they can relationship or not. It's almost as if everybody's always going to be growing. It's the nature of being human, and as you say, humans experiencing, spiritual beings experiencing a human interaction here. And because of the nature of that, it's only natural that we are going to expand. But when the third entity, being the relationship, fails to expand because we're not depositing to it sufficiently, do you feel that sometimes, and it was just a thought that I had when I was watching the documentary today, and I thought, being a couples counsellor myself, I thought, sometimes I wonder if we don't blame our relationships for our inability to feel free enough to fulfill our purposes. Whereas if we were free, if we set ourselves free, rather than relying on our freedom to come from another human being, we allow ourselves to be free, because often what we project on another is really what's going on inside of ourselves. So if we were to give ourselves the permission to be free, then potentially the relationship may not necessarily be what is. And the reason that I'm asking that question is because most of our listeners are women. And from the female perspective, how your wife has perceived or experienced this journey, this Jenny. Does that make sense, or have I just said a whole lot of stuff? That really I just had a whole brain vomit right there.
Yeah, there's a lot that there's a lot of questions that this documentary will raise within people, and it will challenge a lot of people, and it will also inspire a lot of people. Timea, is a truly remarkable woman, and I've certainly got a lot of love for her. And we've got a beautiful daughter together. Where do I start with trying to remember everything that you?
Okay, I'll just remind you. You. Do you think that? And I think the most poignant question there, really, out of all of it, is, we look at our lives sometimes and think, I'm not fulfilling my purpose and I don't feel free. But for the most part, when we feel like it's the relationship's fault, or it's not the other person's responsibility, it's really our own. And when we set ourselves free psychologically, emotionally, mentally, with our thoughts, physical and emotional, when we set ourselves free, then potentially the relationship doesn't have to be sacrificed. Do you think that that's a possibility?
Setting ourselves free. Communication is something that, people, there's a lot of actions and hidden behaviours that aren't addressed in relationships. And people end up going down a road that isn't being true to who they are. People can get married for all different types of reasons. And as long as that's true to who they are, if they're going to, if they want to have, if someone wants to have children and nurture leaders, that's really true to who they are, then that's absolutely amazing. However, if somebody wants to, that wasn't really on Madonna's agenda. She knew within inside her that she was different, that she had a gift to give to the world. And every single person has a gift to give to the world. Are you honouring that? That is the question to ask of yourself. Because there is no such thing as right or wrong. Everything we do is serving who we are. And everything we do is helping us get to the next stage. And that can be, whether you are sitting down and watching TV, how is that linking to your highest value? Is serving us. But, are you going to choose to get onto the path and do what you're doing? Are you going to listen to that voice that's inside of you? Or if you continue down the same path, do you acknowledge that you have this voice inside of you? And are you really listening to that? Because learning to listen to that after being educated in such a way that we learn to stop listen to people outside of us, that's dangerous. Now, when you've gone down that road for so long, do you then have the courage? Do you then have what it takes to transform your life and honour who you are?
Joel, can I ask you, the sense that I get from what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is your whole feeling of living an illusion is that it wasn't true to be in the relationship with your wife and to have that child, and you therefore were not fulfilled, and therefore you weren't living your truth as such. Do you think, though, I've just finished reading Brené Brown's book, Rising Strong, and one of the questions she asks in there, which was quite profound to her from her psychologist, was, do you think everybody's doing the best that they can? And she was quite struck by that and asked over 40 or 50 people over the next month what their reaction to that was. And there was a group of people, the people who felt that no, they're not, backed it up very quickly with reasons why. And then the people who felt that, yes, they are doing the best that they can, had a far more compassionate view as to how people are responding. Do you think then that perhaps you and your wife were just doing the best that you could in that moment, that there was no wrong, that there is nothing wrong with where you were both at and what was happening, and that you just came to a place where all of a sudden you decided that being on the stage and doing the entrepreneurial stuff and the things that you do in your working life just felt far more greater and more fulfilling than perhaps your married life? Were you just doing the best that you could and now you've woken up to wanting to doing more of that, or were you feeling that the whole way
This
through?
is again, I mean, this is the transformational work that we go through working with someone who I believe is the one expert at this, which is Tony Salimi, and the best they can. We are all doing the best we can with the knowledge that we have, with the level of consciousness and awareness that we have at the time. We're all doing the best we can, but looking back, we can join the dots. And looking back, I know that I made choices, and Timmy would also say that choices were made out of need and fear and lack of self-love and self-worth. So we do things to be liked by others or to be included, and because that's what society tells us, and that's how we perceive the way our life should be. But we end up living other people, and most people are other people. There are other people's passions are a quotation, and their life is a mimicry. I think Oscar Wilde said something like that in a roundabout way. It just comes back to, are you being true to who you are? Because I do believe that we know. I do believe that people can feel globally, without necessarily reading any books. They can feel when something's not right. And I remember going through school, and I could just feel that there's something not true about this. What are we learning here? What are we all conforming to? Everybody's different. There's not a one size fits all, and the school system has become a bit like the fast food industry, where you can go to a restaurant in London and it's pretty much this. You're going to get the same as you do in New York or LA or Sydney or Brisbane, and that's the same. That's the school system. It's out people to be the same in this world that we have been born into this kind of movie. So we end up and being someone we are not, who we are not. But getting back in line to who that truth is. That's who you are when you're younger. Look at children. I've got a 3-year-old, 3.5, nearly 4, and she's a ballerina, and she lives who she is. She's truth. She's honest. Sophie, did you mess up the living room? Yes, I did, Daddy. And she's constantly living who she truly is, expressing who she truly is without the fear of what other people are thinking of her. I'm not saying that knowledge, learning things is wrong, but being distracted by that can have potential disastrous effects on your spirit.
We're all stumped, I think. It's not often we're quiet.
But I think, I'm still left with the question here where I'm thinking to myself, we all do the best based on where we are. And I don't think that anything is a mistake. I think everything is perfect and everything is purposeful along the journey of expansion and along the journey of learning. And if it turns out that you've changed your mind, that your relationship isn't the right relationship, then, so be it. And of course, everybody needs to be free to make those decisions. I think what you're referring to here, Joel, is a lot of the conditioned beliefs and a lot of the conditioned thinking that we're brought up with over the years. Which finds us challenged, as we do get older. When we do start to question it, everything seems to fall apart. Said blue is blue, and who said love feels like love, and who even said that another human being is my key to happiness. all the fairy tales and all of the dreams that we had and all the things that we're kind of told when we're younger growing up, they do fall apart. They don't stand up to inquiry as we get older. So I think that that's, very fair and very justified. I guess the interesting part about your documentary is that, you've chosen to use your relationship as a vehicle or as an example to prove, or not prove, that's not really the right word, is it? As an example to access freedom. So obviously, and I'm just going to make this assumption, is it fair to say that even when you got married, at the time that you got married and at the time that you had your child, it's fair to say that you knew it wasn't right? You were doing it out of obligation at the time? Is that a fair call, or did you feel like it was the right thing at the time?
I knew inside, and I think there's not a single person who would deny that they don't know truly what's going on within them, and know how that feels. I mean, as I said, I really wanted to have a child. I was praying, every night because I wanted to give the gift to my wife. Because she so wanted a child. And whether you like it or not, we are subconsciously under from parents to have children. And I, and my dad would say to me, I never pressured you into doing that. Not with words, but with thought. That is how, so you do things because you believe that this is the right thing to do. You do things because you believe that it's socially accepted. But inside you, something else is going on. So I say to you, I really was praying for that to happen, and it was very difficult for us. But when you are, questioned by an expert and brought to your own realizations, and I could relate back to that. It wasn't true to me. I wasn't being honest with Joel. Now,
so you did know that at the time, though. You did when you got married,
yes,
and when
but you don't
you
know
were trying
how to. But you don't know how to access that.
Access it, or you don't know how to make a decision.
You think you're doing the right thing. You think you're doing what is right, but there's this nagging feeling inside. And
Joel, can I ask you a question?
Can I ask
you a question, Joel? From your perspective and from where you're at and where you were, there was that inquiry perhaps, or that feeling that maybe it wasn't quite right, or you had an inner knowing, you just didn't know how to access it. I can promise you, on the day I got married, I knew it was the perfect and the right thing to do. And I knew he was the man for me, and I knew in my heart of all hearts that our life was going to be perfect from that moment on, and our bubble would never burst. That's how I felt on the day we got married.
Okay, so why did you ask the question to your brother, is this the right thing to do?
Oh, no, that was me.
That was Karen.
I'm Karen, and that was him that just asked me. She's the one with the funny accent.
No, I'm just asking because whilst there are many people, I'm sure, that have that doubt and they're not sure and they want to do the right thing and they want to please their wife or their husband, and I'm sure there's many of us doing the right thing. For me, it felt like nothing but the perfect thing. And of course, since there, the bubble has burst and some life things have occurred, and 25 years down the track, we've got a number of bumps and bruises and scars, but we've got this incredible connection that holds all of those bumps and bruises and scars together. And I love Dr. Brian Weiss's words where he talks about the fact that there's never any wrong in soul connections and connections that we make. We just come to a place sometimes when the relationship or the souls need to take other classes. And I love how soft that is. And I'm just asking whether this is just a male's perspective, your perspective, that it was wrong, or that you came to believing that you had been living an illusionary life rather than a real life, or was it just that it was the truth, and you came to a place where you then got to really delve into and decide that the truth was that this wasn't meant to be. I mean, to me, watching the documentary, I don't know how this is going to go as far as women and men are concerned. I think men could turn around and go, actually, yeah, he's right, I'm living a lie. And is there a chance that they walk away from something that just needed some more work and some more investigation and more conversations with the person that they'd committed to? And are women going to sit there and go, how could you say that? How could you do that to her in that room? How could you talk like that? Like, I just don't know. And we haven't seen the second part of the documentary, so I'm really keen to see her side of it. But maybe for you in this moment it feels incredibly liberating, and my husband's experience of watching it was he got very teary and he got very emotional. I looked at him and it brought up for him the fact that he knows a lot of men, a number of men in his life, friends, are living what you were living. And so it didn't necessarily strike a chord that he was living that way, but he was emotionally affected by the fact that he sees many men out there living that way. And my question, I guess, is do you think women, I mean, is there a softer part to this that us women aren't going to feel like you were really mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, and then there was a woman who actually was at the screening, and she said that it's the best thing you can do, because what's worse for a child, for parents who who are not working out together. People stay in a relationship because of children, and I think that's worse for children, because children grow up believing that lies are okay, that not honouring the truth is okay. There's no right or wrong in any decision. There is pain and pleasure in any decision. You know, you can staying in a relationship has benefits and drawbacks. Leaving a relationship has and drawbacks. But again, if you're not aligned, then there's always going to be that nagging feeling. And it's just whether you want to address that or not. And if you don't address it, then you are going to have to face the consequences that's going to make you very ill. There's people who will be inspired by this, and there's a lot of people who will see a lot of things in this. So as you say, if your husband saw something he could see in other people, well, what's to say he can't see it in himself?
Yeah, look. I think there was a lot of emotion for him in the sense of, you know, for men, there's a lot of responsibility, there's a lot of pressure being that hunter-gatherers. There's still that evolutionary part of the brain that they need to provide and protect. And I actually think that you're absolutely spot on. I think what I loved about the documentary was the truth in that moment of truth, which then allows everybody to move into a space of now dealing with that truth rather than, like you say, living in an illusion. And I think that's the key message Danny and I took from it, was not that there was anything wrong or that you had done anything wrong by marrying your wife when you did and blessing her with a beautiful child and then coming to a part in your relationship when it was just it was just time to call on it. And I think that was the beautiful part in there, where we got to see the truth.
I mean, there's a lot of people who do not acknowledge the truth. And if you look at, I probably you probably know a lot more about this than me, but most marriages, certainly from my awareness, are not true. And look at the statistics on couples who win the lottery. How many of them separate? Look at celebrities. They get married and divorced how many times in their life? I mean, look, the famous people, the Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, they get divorced. There's no financial fear. People stay together and people break up for many different reasons. But why do people stay together? One could be children, but that can have an adverse effect on the child. It can have positive and negative in equal measure. People can stay for fear, as I mentioned, of women, according to She Economy in America, stay married because of financial reasons. Because society has conditioned us in such a way that the man would work and provide, as you mentioned. And the other side of that is what the woman doesn't work or have any financial education. They don't have their own business. They don't, So people stay together for that reason. People stay together because they don't want to commit to the change for fear of ridicule of what society and their friends may say and what their family may think of them. And people make the same choices in business and in work. They stay in a safe, secure job, or what's perceived as a safe, secure job, even though it's not, rather than go in search of that dream and try and go for creating their own business and their own freedom that they truly desire. They withhold. Now, there's advantages and disadvantages to doing that. And it goes through absolutely everything, including, the food that we eat. Why do we drink alcohol? Look at the addictions that happen in relationships to suppress the truth. So, and that's what the signs of a midlife crisis. Drinking, frugal spending, a desire to look good, talking about past relationships. These are signs that we learn to brush under the carpet. But of course, that can be taken out. That's these addictions are drowning out the voice that's screaming at you.
Well, it's funny, I've been very resistant, and I'm wondering if that resistance is fear. And, I just think that sometimes when we hear something like this, and especially as women hearing from a man and watching your wife in the documentary, when she was asked the question, what is your greatest fear and what number is it on a number of 1 to 10? And she said 10, that you guys were going to break up. So I'm wondering if it's resistance to the truth based on fear. And I know that that's a huge question, but I think it's a question that is worth asking, and especially for our listeners. Maybe they're feeling our resistance to what you're saying. Like you've really opened up questioning, and like I said, when it got to a point in the documentary, and I was in suspense, and I was wondering. I wanted to see what was going to happen, and now I'm hanging out to see part 2. When's that going to be released, Joel?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've done we've done a lot of filming before 2 and 3, and it's the next stage of where this goes. You've seen something which you are very aware, but will have a lot of people asking a lot of questions, and but what they're doing is the reactions that we get from people are a reflection of what's going on inside of them. So everything that that, as you say, is there a resistance to this? Is there a resistance? Is there a sort of an anger towards Joel here? Is there a respect for him here? What is going on within that person?
And
because
Joel,
that's where it's coming from.
It's the same is true then. Everything that was going on in your relationship is a reflection of you. Using what you've just said then as well. Oh. So
our inner world is a reflection on our outer world, because we are powerful creators. So we can achieve anything. Now, if we knew that, then we can truly live in our hearts and do what we want. because when you find who you are, when you discover what it is you love, that's when you are always going to be at your happiest. When you look for other things to fill that gap. So we're taught to be consumers. So we say, you get that, you'll be happy if you can just get that dress, that pair of shoes, that bag, or I would just be happy when I go out with that person. Happiness is not outside of us. Happiness is something, it's not when I get that I'll be happy. It's when I'm happy, things will happen. It's the inner work, and this is what I was truly inspired by, the inner work, the self-discovery of who we truly are, because that's what we're going to take. We can't take anything with us when we leave this rock that we're traveling on through space and time. All we can take with us is the learning.
So Joel, can I ask you, who is Joel? Tell us who Joel is so that we know who he is. I know we're coming to the end of the podcast, but I'd love to know who is Joel? Tell us.
Joel is that creative child who wanted to play all day and create. And what you're seeing is who Joel is. And what you're going to see through 2 and 3 is who Joel is, who the transformation that is happening. And it's happening because you're seeing it. You've seen Living My Illusion, but what I'm showing in Living My Illusion is the transformation that is happening to who I truly am, which is that creative person who loves creating films and documentaries to inspire others to live their truth. That is Joel, and that's what I believe, that that's the gift that I love to give, and when you're doing what you love, because you embrace the support and challenging of whatever it is you are doing. You are inspired. You wake up early and you go to bed late feeling inspired and energized. Yeah, it's not the Monday morning blues. The heart attack rate increases by 35% on a Monday morning. People are not living who they want to be. They're working a system and they know within inside them it's wrong. They know within inside them it's not who they are, that it's not what they want to do, that it's not what that they've crushed the dreams that they've had. And the midlife crisis is the universe's way of maybe kicking you and saying, wake up. And the midlife crisis can be the midlife transformation, because it's that wake-up call that our spirit is giving to ourselves to say, okay, you can choose to get in line here. You can choose this road or that road. Which one do you want? Which one's going to serve which one's going to serve your spirit, serve your soul?
When Danny was watching it, and he turned around and he just said to me, I think what struck it for him, which is why I'm interested to know how men are going to react to this and how women are going to react to this, but his whole thing was what he took from it for him personally was, in his sporting world as a professional athlete for so long, he is constantly told, and even as a commentator, to put his game face on, put his game face on, put his game face on. And he gets told to do that in his work all the time, which then brought up the question, who is the real Danny Morrison? And I think where he got so emotional as well for himself was sometimes society or the job or the people or the whatever it is that you're involved in has this expectation perhaps, or that you think there's an expectation on how you should be. Mm-hmm. And then when you don't live up to it, or you don't feel like being that anymore, then you look at that as a mask. He did say, though, that when he's doing that and he has got his game face on, he also loves that. So there was a real interesting conversation around, his own reflection. So it was nothing to do with relationships, but it did spark something in him about sharing his own journey around the world of depression and masking and game facing and who are we and who aren't we as a dad and all the roles for him as a man. So, I want to congratulate you on your bravery to share this, because for us, you've got 3 women sitting here listening to it, and we've only seen your side of the story. So it's a very interesting viewpoint to a man's. And so I want to say thank you for that. And I'll be really interested to what our listeners think of it with the documentary and how they look at it. And perhaps it will spark, my hope is that it sparks an inquiry into who we are, not the right or wrong or the let's leave this relationship or make this one work. That's sort of a bit superficial.
Correct.
I think it's more that inquiry. Is that truly your intention?
Well, yes, it's going to raise a lot of questions, and when you challenge people, you can get an egoic response. Talking to you is truly amazing. It's probably the most challenging interview I've had so far, but then that's brilliant at the same time, because it really is about people asking those questions and people being able, because if it ignites a spark in people to ask questions that they've been conditioned and programmed to accept, ask questions about what's going on, and speak their truth. I think there's a lot of women out there who will start to, by the things that I am saying and the honesty that I'm projecting, will be able to see not only in their own relationships or within others, what's truly happening. Is the husband, are women believing the lies that they're telling themselves about where their husbands are, when they're working late, why they're not wearing a wedding ring? They're very unique signs that we can cover up, we can brush under the carpet. Are they truly being addressed? And what actions are happening within a relationship that are unique signs that something's not right? So all this documentary is doing, it's very funny. When you make things, you don't know where they're going. But all I wanted to do was just be honest, was just say honestly that I was always afraid of because of what others may think of me. And when and by being that great, skilled coach that Tony is, then you start to unravel the truth. And that's why I thought, okay, why not share? Why not? Because, I'm a human being. I'm on this journey like everybody else is. Why not be open about that? Because we all have problems. We all have these thoughts and feelings. We're all going through struggles, every single one of us. But why is it okay not to talk about it? It's become okay not to talk about it. Why can't we change that and say, let's talk about it? So that's what I'm doing. And talking about everything that's going on with me. People won't like that. But people will awaken inside of them something as well. Men and women. And it'd be very interesting to see the next steps, to see the feedback, and talk to many more people about this. But it is, it's when it's available, we will let everyone know.
Joel, I love how your whole intention here is just really to, as you've just said, to speak your truth and to be honest about things that a lot of people don't speak about. And I think that there is way too much in our society that we don't talk about, like mental health, suicide, sexual preferences, all of those sorts of things. There's way too much that goes on behind closed doors that is just
you're right. Suicide being huge. I mean, look at celebrities. Yeah. You think celebrities have got it all. But there's two most recent ones, Chesterton and the other guy, Chris Cornell. Both of them committing suicide. And they've got the perceived perfect life. So people are putting this front. And I'm telling you, I'll be the first person to take a selfie and post it on Facebook, Instagram, and say, hey, look at me. My life is amazing. I'm successful. I've got it all together. But inside, I'm stressed. I'm depressed. I'm lonely. I'm craving direction. That's the truth. That's the truth of it. And I think, that if that's happening to me, and if I am living in a Facebook, Instagram world, and I'm saying, and I even did it last night before I went to sleep. I'm going on a podcast, Hello Australia, with Morrison, and what is that saying to other people about my life? Now, I do say a lot of serious things on Facebook, and I do say exactly what I just said. But at the same time, we all are doing things to please others or to give that perception of what others think of us. Have you ever put a post on Facebook and you've hesitated and you think, what are people going to think about me? And that's what and so I'm just coming from that position of the cultural surroundings that I've been brought up in, and I'm asking questions. I'm saying, okay, why are things like this? Why are we suppressed from that? I think we all feel that kind of disconnection from the inner child, from when we start to get to 7, 8, 9, and we learn to look outside of us for love and want to make others happy. We're taught that, okay, if you don't do this, you won't be liked.
And I think that that's a very fair call. I think we do have that understanding actually at around the age of 3 that we're separate. And, the ultimate result of that is that in that separation, we begin to see or experience ourselves as vulnerable. And then it's in that vulnerability that we go looking for connectedness and sameness rather than differences. And I think that it can be incredibly damaging. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, Joel. I think that we live in a very close-knit society, and we do grow up with a whole world of judgment about what we should and shouldn't be and what societal norms are. And I think, we were saying before, as soon as we put that under inquiry, it collapses. And we only learn to do that inquiry when we get a bit older. So I commend you and I take my hat off to you for, one, yourself, and doing it so publicly, ending the judgment that you were holding on yourself about what's right and wrong. And I really take my hat off to your wife for agreeing to participate in something like this and to exposing beautiful softness, gentleness, vulnerability, and the very feminine side of a relationship experience. So I think that you have an incredible woman there for whatever capacity she's going to be in your world. Obviously the mother of your daughter, but for whatever other capacity she continues to be, I think, I think.
Yeah, she's my business partner. We create a lot together, and
beautifully.
And this is the difference that we, I was speaking to one guy recently. He spent £450,000 getting a divorce. That's I don't know, 600,000 Australian dollars. But now it's very different when people separate with love. That's,
most definitely.
That is something where two people both of them realize that they are that love and respect each other, and it's a very different way because there's no lawyers involved. People go through 10 misery. Parents who separate, they have their kids take sides. They say, "Oh, your father is an alcoholic. Your father is this. Your father is that. Your father did this to me." And the same the other way around. Your mother's run off with someone else. She's like this. She treated me like this, and she's going to do the same to you. And so, look what's happening to the kids. Having someone like, not everybody has a Tony J. Salimi in their life. Now, when you have someone like that, you can see both sides, and you can see how it takes two people to create. It takes two people to destroy a creation. But but there is a way of doing it with ability, and which escapes the pain which we see. It's because there is a financial black hole that is created, and the average divorce in the UK for the average salary earner is £70,000, and this is something very different. It's looking at the Constitution in a very different way.
Joel, just looking at time, I think that today's podcast has been such an interesting experience, I think, for everybody listening to the podcast. And if you haven't watched Joel, where's the best place? So what's the website that our listeners can go and check out? Because I'm sure they're going to have so much curiosity coursing through their veins after this podcast.
Well, if you go to livingmyillusion.com, and there you'll see the trailer. It has yet to have a release date, but this is going to be something that is on every single channel globally. It is going to be absolutely everywhere, and the subscription services as well. And that's the stage we're at with it right now. So bear with us, because it will be very available. But you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm on Facebook as well. Tony, you can follow the work of Tony and follow his desire to awaken the hearts and of 1 billion people globally. And so a billion viewers is where we start. Where we can start with Living My Illusion. And I bet Cindy's going to be with Tony on the TED stage.
Yes, I am.
Wow, it's amazing. So yeah, that'll be fun. I may be there, I may not. I'm not so sure at this point.
Hey, it's just a ditch. You can do it.
Okay.
Look, it's been an amazing podcast, you guys. I think we all had, like I said, we've all gone through, this a whole spectrum of thought about, the conversation and where we're at and what's important. Whether we learn and discover who we are through our relationships, through our families, through our businesses, through our own journeys, as long as we get there. I think that's the most important point. And I think whatever vehicle we use, I guess in effect serves its own purpose. So Joel, thank you so much for being a part of today's podcast. It's been a treat to share this ride with you, and we wish you so much luck and so much profile and wonderment, and for you to really get your message out there in the way that serves you best and serves humanity best. So thank you so much for participating in this, and hopefully we can be a part of that ride with you. Thank you so much for being a part of
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to, once it is released, then we can maybe have an audience questions or something like that, because I think then you've got to have a lot of people who will be having seen what you have seen.
Yes, and we're looking forward to getting that kind of feedback. It'll be very cool, and we'll make sure that we'll share that with you too. It'll be wonderful. Fabulous.
Thank you so much.
For all of our listeners, we hope that you've enjoyed today's podcast, and get ready for when that video comes out, that documentary comes out. And we'll look forward to seeing your feedback. Now, if you've got any questions for us, just whip straight on over to allthews.facebook.com/up-for-a-chat. You can also post your comments and your questions at allthews.thewellnesscouch.com/up-for-a-chat as well. So thank you so much for joining us here this week with Joel, and we're going to look so forward to you joining us again next week, same time, same station, right here on Up for a Chat, where you get to become part of the ripple effect that's changing the world. And we are so enjoying having you on the ride. Bye for now, everybody.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.